Hey everybody, JP here, and today we are going to talk about overheads. I know, real exciting. Maybe not as exciting as guitars or kicks and snares, but equally important to a good overall mix. And we're going to get into two different things that Andy Wallace has talked about in past interviews. One of them I'm going to link in the description if anybody wants to check it out. It's an interview from Mix Magazine in 2005, where Andy is interviewed by Michael Barbiero, a great engineer in his own right. And he really gets into talking about automating the overheads throughout a song to add excitement to certain parts and to bring out certain cymbal hits from time to time, and how really focusing on that and taking your time with using some musical sensibilities can really go a long way. And the other thing is from an interview in the mid-90s that Andy did, again with Mix Magazine. I couldn't find this anywhere online. I don't think it's archived anywhere. But he talks about using phase to spread the stereo spectrum out slightly. I remember reading it and sitting down at a little Trident 65 console and trying to kind of decipher what he was describing and figure out how to do it. So I'm going to show you that way, and there is a big advantage to doing it that way. But first, let me play you, this is just stereo overhead track from the song we've been using. So I've just got our good old Waves E-channel version 2, boosting a little bit of 10K, filtering out up to 200. But the real key here is I'm using this extra wide feature. And I only have it at about 16. So if you go all the way wide with it, it gets a little phasey. And I keep this on my drum bus for testing it in mono. See, when the width is all the way as far as it'll go, you lose a lot in mono in terms of compatibility. By the way, this plugin is free. Everybody should have it. It's fantastic. It's from a company called TBPro Audio, a German company. You can solo in 5 different frequency ranges and adjustable crossovers. So you could really hone in on what's happening in different areas. So I love this plugin. But today we're just going to use it for mono compatibility. So if I put the width back to 16, see, it works much better in mono. There's a little bit of loss, but not nearly as much. And I'll live with that. So let me bring in the rest of the drums, and we'll kind of play around with how Andy might do some of those automation rides. Maybe ride them down a little bit after that crash, let the toms have their moment. Back up here, let that crash ride ring out. Here, we really want to emphasize that crash over the hats. It's a tricky part. I'd want to keep it down during the really busy snare stuff. But you want to make sure to catch those little crashes, which I'm missing right now because I'm talking. So you get the idea. It's all about little rides, all within a few dB of each other. That 2005 interview, Andy talks about boosting them as much as 5 dB at times. It's all going to be song dependent. But now let's look at the old school way of doing this. Now, if you do have a stereo overhead track, what you want to do is split that out into mono tracks. So you're going to have your hard pan left and right overheads, just like standard. You're gonna EQ them however you need to. I'm still doing the +4 at 10K, filtering out at 200. You do that on both faders. Then what you want to do is duplicate those into another pair. And on this pair, you don't necessarily need the SSL for this. Anything that will flip the phase of the channel. That's actually all I'm doing here. I am filtering out the bottom a little bit. And then notice I have them panned a little in. I'll explain why. Let's listen to them first. So with the phase flipped on both, the panning a little on the inside here, and at about -12, I am getting the same results that I'm getting from the width control on the stereo track. So this is what Andy was talking about in that mid-90s interview about using phase to increase the stereo spectrum. And if you listen, there's a point where they almost cancel each other out, especially if the panning matches. There we go. You notice if we listen to this in mono, there's almost no difference because they're already canceling out so much between the pair. So that's why we want to bring them a little more towards the center. I was at 31 per side. And then we want to find the point. You notice the more I bring them out, the more you go back to just those original tracks. So you really want to find the spot where they complement without taking away too much. And then the cool thing about building them this way is now if you ride these faders individually, you could still ride them. You could ride all 4 faders as a group throughout certain sections of the song if you want and automate them that way. But what I really love is when you boost one of these, you could really make it pop out of the stereo spectrum momentarily. Like I caught that little ride section before and really made that jump out of the left. And that's the cool thing about automating the individual faders like this. You can manipulate the spectrum to make a cymbal just pop out for a split second and then tuck it right back in. And you can't really do that with just a stereo fader and just the width control on that fader. The stereo fader with the width control is probably going to be fine 80% of the time. But I feel like if you really want to take your mix to the next, 20 or even 10%, this is the way to do it. This is the way Andy does it. And he uses that little bit of phase manipulation to really make things pop out when he needs to. So just another awesome trick that Lord Wallace does so well.